So the Africa Forward Summit took place over the last couple of days, and that came to an end yesterday with a thrilling remark from the President of Kenya, President William Ruto, who insisted yet again about how there needed to be fair play when it came to global financing, and how Africa is not asking for a seat at the table anymore, but that is at the table and making the rules. Okay, sounds great. But then let's look at some of the agreements that were made during this summit and whether they actually look in the proper direction. A lot of people are talking about the thought that Africa's nations need to be economy facing, and if they're not economy building facing, then we are wasting time. The Nairobi commuter rail upgrade, about 12.5 billion shillings. There's some of the major agreements that investment deals signed between William Ruto and Emmanuel Macron during Macron's visit to Kenya and the Africa Forward Summit in Nairobi over the last couple of days. 12.5 billion shillings for rehabilitation and modernization of the Nairobi commuter rail lines, linking areas such as Syokimau, Embakasi, Roiro, Kikuyu, and the Ruta Ngong corridor. $800 million, that's about 904 billion shillings. Port Logistics and Infrastructure, JV, partnership involving logistics and cargo infrastructure connected to the Port of Mombasa. French shipping giant CMA CGM announced plans to renovate terminals at the Port of Mombasa, with investments reportedly reaching 700 million euro. Energy and climate, the Kipeto wind farm expansion, additional 100 megawatts wind power expansion worth around $250 million. National Electricity Control Center agreement for construction of a new electricity control center aimed at improving grid reliability. We keep going on and on. XN, Masinga Dam rehabilitation, nuclear cooperation, which Ochanda is very excited about, sustainable aviation fuel, digital and technology, agriculture and trade, 5.6 billion shilling engineering and science complex at the University of Nairobi, plus technical equipment support for 4 Kenyan universities, health and blue economy, broader investment commitments to the tune of 1 billion euro in Kenya-focused investments. All of these were inked. I mean, it goes into the detail, but you get the main picture, and I'm sure you looked into some of these. The very simple question, when we're talking about nations needing to be economy facing, these are good things, are they not?
I think they are good things, but it depends on who you are.
Okay.
If you look at the list, it's quite long.
Very long. This is what I've done is not even scratch the surface.
Yes, in fact, if we can spend the next 30 minutes just looking at the list itself.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good statement that we should be economy facing, because when KK or Kenya Kwanza government came to power, that was our dream, that we should put politics at the back and economics at the front. But that has not really happened. The question should be, and maybe the first question in our discussion should be, what would China or the UK or the US and other big economic powers say about this investment program? Because French are not in Kenya alone. A lot of other people are here.
Yes.
The Chinese have been here, big, with the SGR, with the expressway, with the port of Ramu, and very many other projects. So I think French have come to compete with other people who are deeply entrenched here. And I would like to know their reaction. But if you look at all these projects, if they are implemented, I think would have an effect. But the big question I should be asking is, we know yesterday and the day before yesterday, the 2-day summit, we know there are some people who benefited.
Yes.
If you own a Uber transport company, if you own a hotel, they really did very well because of the demand for those services. So there are benefits in the short run. So the big question to be asking is, if all these projects are implemented, who will benefit in the long run? And the question should be the common mwananchi. That should be the starting point. If we implement all these projects, port logistics, energy control center, AI, agriculture, UN, new building and blue economy, how would the ordinary Kenyan benefit? Because I've been interacting with other countries that have been investing here. The ones I've mentioned, the US, UAE, Turkey, China, and so on. But has the ordinary Kenyan felt that? So the best test of this summit, whether it was successful or not, is to find out if Wanjiku, as we try to use it, is good. The word we use all the time is to find out if Wanjiku will feel it. If I go to Kakamega, if I go to Shamahoho, if I go to Meru, if I go to Machakos, 1 or 2 years from now, and they start saying, I think there are more jobs for us. I think our agricultural products have a market. Before I came here, I was sitting outside here, and I remember seeing on one of the WhatsApp groups, somebody from Bonanga sent a message. In fact, it was an SOS message. And he was saying, I have 3 tons of avocados that I need to take to the market. 3 tons of avocados I need to go to the market. So the test of pudding is eating. And let's see how ordinary Kenyans are going to benefit from this summit. That's my take.
Off the top of your head, do you see from this how ordinary Kenyans will benefit as a result of this summit?
Maybe in the long run.
Okay.
Maybe in the long run, but not the short run. Because when you talk about port logistics, we know ports need to be efficient. So if they're efficient, then we expect the cost of goods and services to go down. Because it will take less time to come, it will be faster, and we need to see that reflected in the prices. Because one of the big costs of goods and services is transport. So we hope we are going to see that. Now, when you talk about energy control center, we expect to have less blackouts. I've been suffering from blackouts in the last 1 month. I hope there will be less of that. When you talk of nuclear energy, I hope the price of energy is going to go down because the supply will go up. Because we have an interesting energy market in Kenya where more energy is supplied, but the price does not go down because of, people like independent power producers and so on. Agriculture is the mainstay of this economy. So will Kenyan farmers have bigger markets in France or European Union? So that if I have potatoes, if I have avocados, if I have tea, if I have coffee, I have a market for it. Now, my biggest concern is I was looking at the trade between Kenya and France.
Yeah.
And I was finding out what do we export there. It's raw materials, coffee, tea, cut flowers, spices. But when you check what we import from France, it is
finished products.
Finished products,
Yes.
Perfumes, chemicals, machinery, wine, and such things. So if this, are we going to have this imbalance corrected? So my answer is, in the long run, if this is implemented, we want the ordinary Kenyans to feel it.